So the other day, I was on Will's page, and then I got into a comment section war, and I don't have time for that. I don't have time for that. How do your people have time for that? I got into a comment section war. I wasn't warful. I don't think I was like not peaceful, but I just got into it with this girl who was clearly like trying to hurt. I don't know, she's trying to hurt me. But it was a post that you made about the religion of just being a good person. Where are we, honey? We're on our way.
Oh, just past the Mad Greek. So
The Mad Greek?
People who drive from LA to Vegas know that. It's just like on the 115. It's like the main desert drag into Vegas.
Oh, I didn't know that was common knowledge, but I know the Mad Greek because I'm people from LA.
You are.
Okay. So I think that a lot of people, when we talk to them about God, the default answer is just be a good person. Just be a good person. And so there's just flaws, I think, to that philosophy.
Essentially that if you say that you don't need a formal structure, like some sort of formal religion or ideology to guide you, that you just have to be a good person, it kind of dissolves in the details.
Crumbles in the details.
Exactly what does that look like in this situation, in that situation, in that situation. I gave examples like a homeless person asks you for money. How much exactly should you give? You know, where like Judeo-Christian belief and stuff have like, you know, the idea of tithing. So you give 10% to the needy or something like along those lines. There's different ways to approach that, but there are like specific things that you're supposed to do. This is what you do when someone dies. This is what you do when someone is born. There's like rules essentially. And I think the just be a good person, it's like people who don't want like rigid rules, because the dogmatism of religion is something that's very triggering to people, because from that comes a lot of, you know, people don't like to be boxed in, don't like rules, but also there comes a lot of judgment sometimes if you don't follow the rules.
I think a lot of people in the comment section were really interested in your conversion and how because you came to Christ through science.
Yeah, scientific method, yes.
A scientific method.
Yeah, the Socratic method, scientific method, yeah.
So just a little bit of background. When Will and I met, I was lukewarm AF. I was so lukewarm. I was in a season in my life where I was kind of like angry at the church. That's why I really understand why, you know, Christianity and just like organized religion is a turnoff, because I've been there. I think if you're gonna find out the ugliness of Christianity, like be a Christian, join the church. Like that's the only way to for sure you'll really do your research and find out. But yeah, when I met Will, I was like in a really lukewarm place in my life. But I knew I wanted to get married to a Christian. I wanted to build a family based on, you know, Christian foundations and and morals and values, et cetera, et cetera. And so when I married Will, he was open to it, but he was also showing me a lot of atheist things. He was showing me a lot of like atheist documentaries and like books and things like that. But it's so interesting because just like how he is today, it didn't mean that he was closed to the idea. But, you know, I didn't know that you were still into radio back then.
Well, I don't think I did either.
Yeah, but you were just like, oh, that's an extreme thought. Let's look at that. And so that's why the beauty, I think that's what attracted me to you so much, is that you were just so intellectual and so open to learn, and your mind just worked at a speed where obviously mine doesn't. And then so I think it's really interesting, after several years of being married, you finally got baptized on your 40th birthday, which was what, a year and a half ago?
Yeah.
2 years, year and a half ago. And I have to say that it has changed the dynamic of our home. Would you think so? You've been a Bible study now for maybe several years, but when you got baptized, it changed the order in our home. It almost like shape-shifted to what a Christian household should look like, with God at the top, husband, wife, kids. The question is, would you agree that like after you got dunked in that water, something happened? Yes, things changed. I wasn't expecting that.
Yeah, you said I was in a Bible study for years. So during COVID, I was still in this like questioning phase. I was trying to just like learn about religion, atheism, religion, agnosticism,
Gnosticism.
just like I don't know religion. A friend of mine, a former pastor of ours, Pastor Billy Calderwood, was like, hey, you know what? Let's get a group of guys together and just talk like philosophy, and we'll dive into like theology and stuff like that too. I didn't know it was a Bible study, but like he like knew that if he was like, hey, let's join a Bible study, I'd have been like, no, that's corny, I'm not doing that. It's like, let's talk about philosophy.
Let's just talk about philosophy.
He's a smart guy, studies a lot of philosophy and stuff like that too. So we got into it, started with Proverbs and stuff like that, and it kind of got hooked him. And I was like, wow, there's a lot of wisdom in this.
Yeah, Proverbs. Proverbs is an easy one to get into, I think. It's a good starter for any.
Yeah, but like I grew up in like the church, in like a Presbyterian church, but essentially like I never really like read the Bible, like read the Bible. So to actually go in and read the Bible, and then all of a sudden I was like, wow, there's a lot of wisdom in this book. And it's like the Holy Bible, like there's wisdom in it, of course.
Tell them about the time you discovered coffee, because it's related.
Same thing.
It's the same thing.
Yeah,
He discovered coffee in his 30s.
I didn't drink coffee until I was like in my mid-30s. And then when I started drinking coffee, as a cop, I don't know if it's okay to film me, I guess it is.
You're not holding anything.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I am, officer.
When I started drinking coffee, I would like call up my friends from like high school and stuff, like, oh man, you're having a slow morning, a warm cup of Joe really gets you going. And they're like, you're an idiot. Like everyone knows this. You're discovering something that everyone knows. Like, and the Bible is very much like that for me. I was like, wow, like there's so much stuff in here that I learned through like a secular lens. I learned through, studies and, learning about the importance of fasting through Andrew Huberman. And then it's like, oh, there's like elements of fasting that's involved, like stuff like that. So I think it's just the idea of the things are cliche for a reason, things are popular for a reason.
Oh, yeah.
And that was part of it. But anyway, when I got dunked under the water.
When you got dunked under the water, did you expect our lives to like kind of change after you got baptized?
No, because it's just I filled it up with the garden hose. And it was at our house, and like it was silly. I mean, it was one of those things, but it was actually very difficult for me to do that because faith is something very personal to me. I don't talk about it very much because it is about my personal relationship with Jesus, and that's something that is very, very important and personal. The same way I don't talk about a lot of details with like our marriage because that's personal and stuff like that. I don't share a lot of details about being a dad because it's very personal and stuff like that. But when I did that, I came up, I was changed. I think it was a deeper commitment. It's kind of like marriage. Like we've had fights over we've been married for 12.
Is that it? 12?
Coming up on 12 in July.
Okay.
We've been together for coming up on 14. We've been together for 13, coming up on 12 married. There have been fights that if we weren't married, we probably would have broken up.
Yeah,
we probably gotten back together, but we probably would have broken up.
Yeah.
And when you get married,
I'll see you after the weekend.
So when you get married, you make that commitment that we're in this now. Like this is it now. This is like official, and we gotta, it's like ride or die till the grave, and then beyond. So I think when I got baptized, it was so official that like, okay, this is who I am now. This is a new birth. This is coming out of the birth canal again, like coming up from that water. It's like, I'm different now. I'm born again. That's the idea Jesus talks about in John and stuff like that. It's like, so I have to live this way now. Like I have to figure this out with you. You and I are in a fight. We have to figure it out. And the same concept here is like, I'm in a predicament. I have to do this through a biblical lens. I have to do this through a lens of being a Jesus follower. So in that, it's just changed my behavior top to bottom. I still sin. I still make terrible decisions. I still, a lot of things, lose my temper and have all kinds of different things, but my faith hasn't wavered at all. I just have like a layer of like, man, I've lost my way a little bit. Let me get back on the path. But that's a big thing, is like I make that public commitment. And also when I go on, my social media channels and my friends and stuff see it, like, all right, I'm a Jesus person now, which is like not what I would have ever expected. So a lot of people that grew up with me and stuff like that would not have ever expected that. If you say that you're a Jesus person, you're held to a certain standard that people are going to hold you to. It's like if I say I'm a health person and you see me, smoking cigarettes, eating McDonald's, you'll be like, well, you're a hypocrite. Like you're not living aligned. And I always like to say, think, and do the same thing. I like to live aligned. So if I say that I'm a Jesus person now it's like, all right, I got to actually act that way because I'm representing him.
Yeah.
I'm representing him.
Yeah.
So, when people are mean to me or talking about online, like people are mean to me all the time online because I spark thought.
How dare you?
I'm a fan of Socrates.
How dare.
Socratic method. So I ask a lot of questions and try and spark thought. And thinking and learning is a very disruptive process. So people get really mad and stuff. And I want to always conduct myself. I want to conduct myself in a way that every single thing that comes out of my mouth, my whole life, and what I type online for my entire life now is going to be something that I can say, yep, that was me.
Right.
And if it was wrong, then I will learn from it. But I want to be a representative of him, and that holds you to a higher standard too. Right. So in that way, I think those are the two areas. Long-winded way of saying those are the two areas that have changed.
Yeah, there is something about like proclaiming it to the world. Like there is something, baptism is, an act of obedience, right? It's an outward expression of an inward change. It doesn't save you, but it's just an outward expression of an inward change. And so, we do that all the time as Christians, like, or it's just people. Like, how dare you wear fitness gear and you don't even work out? you know what I mean? Like, why are you wearing a cop outfit? You're not even a cop. But it's the same thing. Like I wear a cross and you feel some type of way about your cross because it kind of holds you to a higher standard. So like I used to have like back in the 90s or 2000s, I had like a Jesus fish on my car. And then so a lot of times I wanted to take it off because I wasn't a great driver back then. Julie says I've gotten better.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's basically like who you represent. So in the same way, I just kind of want to add that. Join us at the Beauty Business Mastermind live in Los Angeles. 3 transformative days of strategy, networking, and empowerment designed exclusively for beauty professionals. Elevate your business, connect with high-level professionals, and ignite your success. Don't miss out on this intimate, game-changing event. Guys, this is by far the most favorite thing I do all year. So secure your spot now and propel your beauty business and your soul to new heights. If you want to learn more, send me a direct message on Instagram at @RealSheilaBella with the word mastermind, and I'll tell you all about it. I changed my podcast name to CEO Glow Show, and I started talking about Jesus more, and I made a public announcement that, hey, this is going to be officially a faith-based podcast, okay? And so now I find myself like being cognizant of that. So sometimes the transformation comes from the outside in. Like I see girls wearing crosses around their necks all the time, but then, they don't consider that state. Do you remember, do you know what that cross means? You know that the Lord of the universe came down from heaven, became a man, and died for your sins? Like, that's what that means. It
represents the most painful way to be tortured and killed that the Romans could come up with. But there's something interesting there because what happens is when you say like, all right, CEO Glow Show now, I'm a Christian now. Right. People hold you to a high standard.
That too.
And if you, they hold you to a way higher standard. I have a good friend, Joseph, who runs a charity to house and feed the homeless.
He's your bestie, man. He's your bestie.
I love Joe. But he does really good work. Like he's like out there in the pouring rain, downtown Skid Row all the time, giving people tents, like giving people food. He's giving the shoes off his feet. I've watched him take the shoes off his feet like 5 times to just give the homeless people. Amazing guy. But because he houses sometimes, over 100 people and he feeds thousands, he takes a salary. This is his job. He runs a nonprofit. His nonprofit has to pay him. Okay, and he has saved tons of lives and everything like that, but he takes a salary, and people get mad at him if he takes flying lessons. He uses some of money to learn how to be a pilot, and people get mad at him for that. They're like, oh, you're living this luxurious life. Like he has a decent car and stuff like that, and it's like, well, hold on. If he was a stockbroker just screwing like little old ladies out of their retirement funds and like some sort of weird Ponzi scheme, like it would almost be left at like a worse standard. And it's like, oh, well, you can go waste your money, but because you're a Jesus person, because you're a charitable person, you're supposed to somehow, you're supposed to represent that. And I get it, but people come after you way more because you are representing this idea that is holier than than the rest, which is Jesus. Like, that's the really tricky thing, is people will be harder on you for a small indiscretion compared to someone who's not a believer. They'll let a lot more slide because, like, well, they're not claiming to be good. But Christians aren't claiming to be good. They're claiming to be trying to be better. And that's a big difference.
Claiming to be lost. It's like that R.C. Sproul quote that you posted. Christians have nothing to be smug about. It's just one, evangelism is basically just one beggar telling another beggar where to find bread.
Yeah, I also love that quote about church is a hospital for sinners, not a museum for saints. I think that's kept me out a lot, because I was looking at all these Christians who were terrible. They treated people terribly, they did terrible things, and I was like, well, that's not, and how, what is this? Like, they're just hypocrites. And it's not that. I mean, some are, and some do terrible things while claiming, Jesus and stuff like that. But I think what it is they're just flawed. Those aren't Christian things. Those are people things. That's the way people act. People act in terrible ways. They cheat on their wives. I would be like, oh, this is a Christian who cheats on his wife. It's like, no, people cheat on their wives. But at least Christians have this like feeling of like, oh, this was wrong. I can get back on the path and away from it. They have a pathway out of that kind of behavior, where someone who doesn't have an ideology for how to get out of that bad behavior more likely to be stuck in it. Essentially, you go to the hospital to get healed, and that's what I think church is. Like, you go there to get healed. You're going to be sick, but everyone's sick. Right. So the hospital helps heal you.
Okay, so it was our assignment, Pastor Justice Coleman and Maria Coleman. It was our assignment at Freedom for March. We called it March Madness, to share our testimony. Because, like, you can share all the sciencey stuff in the world, you know what I mean? You can tell your friends, like, hey, my church has donuts, and my church has, like, the best coffee, you gotta come. Or, on Easter, like, hey, they have, like this awesome section for kids, you should come. But, we're just, like, selling the features. But what we hardly ever talk about is the transformation of our lives, of, like, I don't think I've ever really told my testimony to my best friends. Now that I think about it, I don't know if I have in a succinct way. I think they see my transformation, but I don't think they could tell another person, like, oh, the reason why Sheila became a Christian is, the reason why Will became a Christian is. I don't think they could say that. And I was like, oh, that's crazy. It's kind of the same as, like, people following you on Instagram and they don't even know what you do or what you're offering. Anyway, it's marketing. So there were several comments underneath that, aside from, the church assignment. There were several comments underneath that post, and a lot of people are commenting on your stuff all the time, asking, like, how did you come to faith as a person of science? Because I think a lot of people see you as a very logical, very intelligent, very sensible person, with all you have a very loyal following. Will's following is like, they're like diehards. So the common question is, like, how did you come to faith as this person? Because I think a lot of people relate to how you think.
Okay, so I think what it was in my heart, I really wanted to be a good person. I think most people do. They're like, I want to be a good person, whatever that means. So what does that mean? You have to define good. So then you have to learn about morality. So I dove into secular social science, learning morality. So Sam Harris has written on that, like the moral landscape. John Haidt, who I've worked with before and I really love his work, wrote The Righteous Mind, Why Good People Are Divided by Religion and Politics. Excellent book. So it's a social science lens. Then there's the philosophical lens. Socrates, Plato, Aristotle, like, what did they say about morality? Or Immanuel Kant's talking about the categorical imperative and things like that. So I went to the philosophical lens and I was like, well, there's another lens, which is the theological lens. So I dove into the theological lens and learning about what morality is there. And I looked for the overlap, and then I started looking at when those two would be in conflict. And I would listen to the conflicts through debates. So when people say, like, certain things are not open for debate, this is not open for debate, whatever, racism or sexism or whatever, is not open for debate. It's like, no, I think everything's open for debate, because the highest, which is God, is debated, and that's what got me there. So, but it took a while. So I started reading these atheist books, then giving that a shot, and I was like, something was missing. So then I started reading apologetics books. The Reason for God by Timothy Keller, C.S. Lewis, Mere Christianity, and then others. And it was a lot of videos too, a lot of debates.
Yeah.
And then I got into learning about free will, because a lot of atheists believe that free will is not coherent with a materialistic viewpoint of the world. If we're just, electrical signals and chemicals and stuff like that, then we don't have free will. We think we do, but we don't. I do believe we have free will. So I was like, okay, so we have free will. That leads me toward the more like God side of God, no God. But then also I went into Stephen C. Meyer and other people about intelligent design. And is the world intelligently designed, or is it just kind of happenstance? So Francis Collins, who headed the Human Genome Project, was an atheist, learned more about genetics than pretty much anybody. When we started to sequence the human genome and stuff like that, learning about DNA and things, it's essentially a code. And codes have a coder. It's designed. It's like I heard someone say like, if you go downstairs and alphabet cereal has a whole message about like, good morning, Sheila, how are you, blah, blah, blah. It's illogical to say that just happened. It's logical to say that was written by somebody. So it's like those kinds of arguments got me down the idea of intelligent design, that there is a God or a creator. Sprinkling a little bit of psychedelic experiences. And I go, okay, so there is a creator. What creator now? Okay, so I'm out of the materialistic world that's just like things are just material and there's nothing bigger than us. So then I just started pulling on that thread that there is a creator, there's a God. Okay, so I started pulling on that thread more and more and more. Well, I went back to the idea of trying to be a good person. And I think if you're searching for how to be a good person, that will inevitably lead you to the best person. If you're trying to get, for you, like, money, you look at who has made the most money. You look for the pinnacle of whatever you're looking for. So looking for a good person, I'd look for the narrative of who's the best person. You could say to an atheist, if there is a narrative of a fictional person, according to you, who is the best person, they would say Jesus Christ. Okay, if you ask Christians, they would say Jesus Christ. Even Muslims, Jewish people acknowledge him as like a prophet, and at the very least acknowledge he was a good person. And then there is a historical Jesus of Nazareth as well that really existed. So there's a person who really existed, and there's a narrative of this person who really existed, who is the perfect person. There's no record of him sinning on the historical record, so it seems like they touch. So then I was like, okay, so I guess Jesus is the role model I have for how to be a good person, and then there is a God, and then I fall into that story, and the story of that all kind of lined up for me, and it took a long time. We're talking about many, many years of figuring this out, and that was long-winded, but it got me to this point. And then when I was resisting it the whole time, like, no. It's what peer review is supposed to be in the university world. It's like constant resistance. If you have a hypothesis in science, you try and prove it wrong. You don't try and prove it right. If you believe the earth is flat, you can prove that right. There's all kinds of videos and texts on like how the earth is flat. But if you try to prove it wrong, you probably can. I tried to kind of prove this wrong, and I just couldn't do it. And there's so many people who are atheists, Cy Gart, and then they went to science and became Christian. Or John Lennox, the math chair at Oxford, is an evangelical Christian. Or Bill Newsom, the head of neuroscience at Stanford, is, an evangelical Christian. It's the science and faith kind of came together for me in so many ways. The James Webb Telescope now shows even more evidence that the universe had a starting point in the beginning. God, so all the new technology is proving more of the Bible true. The stuff that Dawkins was saying in the God delusion is now being more and more proven to be false. So the atheists are being proven more false, and the people on the faith side are being proven more correct as technology develops. So once I was like, all right, I'm not resisting this anymore. I was resisting. And right before I got baptized, I was like, I'm not resisting anymore. Instead, I'm gonna go the other way, and I'm gonna embrace it. And that's when I would say that I actually became like a born again Christian. Well, I started to embrace it. And once I did, I think I became a better husband, father, friend, son. I've healed relationships. I'm just a better person, and you can't, that's something that's quantifiable for everyone who knows me would say that I'm a better person, and they say, that's, what's the reason? It's like, well, it's because of I've adopted this operating system of being a follower of Jesus. So that was kind of long, but that's it.
It's okay. You talk about, that was really good. The way your brain works is not the way a lot of like my audience's brain works, but maybe so, but that's why I think that's why
it's
our
pastor. Yeah,
that's true, or a pastor. But like I became a Christian through very, I think, non-traditional routes. Well, also all science aside, like this isn't like a challenge or anything, but But I'm just curious, if you were to talk about your faith without mentioning any of those books or science, and just like through purely like feeling experiences or maybe miracles you've seen or like hardships you've had, and we know you've had a lot. So how would you share your faith? Because I felt like that explanation of like how you came to faith is very specific for a specific type of brain. Yeah, which I love. And I'm like,
it's the objective side, and then you're talking about the subjective side.
There you go.
Experience.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay, so what's the subjective side?
If you are looking for a contact lens on the carpet, you're going to find it. If you're not looking for it, you're not going to find it.
Yes!
So if you're looking for the miracles in everyday things, you're going to find them. If you look at the world through a lens of you have a creator that loves you, you're going to feel that. So the idea that I am loved and cared for in the deepest ways, that I know, I don't think, but I know that when I die, I'm going to heaven. I know and believe, for that term, I believe the story, the Christ story. I believe the at least meta narratives of the Bible. So I know that more than I know anything else. I'm more confident in that than I am in gravity. Sorry, I'm going back to the. That's okay. I'll check this side, but it's just the way my brain works. But it's an undeniable feeling when you just walk around. You know, I teach for a living, and kids who come from families where they are just loved unconditionally. It doesn't matter what they do. They know their parents will love them. Yeah. Those kids just are different. They're different the way they interact in the world. But that's the best way I can explain it. Is I feel like I'm coming from a very loving dad. You know, a very loving home, and that's going to change the way that you just interact in the world.
Oh, I've never heard you say that.
Okay.
Yeah. You have daddy issues a little bit?
No, I don't. I mean, probably we all do, probably.
I
but no, I had a good dad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you guys had a little bit of a, rift when you're older. When I came in the picture.
As an adult, I had, we butted heads, but like as a child, like he was excellent, very present, very loving, very fun, and he provided for the family and everything like that. Yeah.
Well, I'm sure it's healing to have like a spiritual father, like a father, not just that, a father, like in heaven. It's like that must be different. Is it different?
It's worse.
Yeah,
it's deeper. It's bigger than just this world. I mean, I almost think about this world to some degree like it's like a video game. And at some point, you're gonna die in the video game, and then you go to like the real world. I mean, it's kind of
We're so fixated on everything on this earth, and we forget that the real life actually begins in eternity.
The video game just matters less.
Yeah,
it still matters.
Just matters less. So what I've found with a lot of people, and also with myself, like most people just, and correct me if I'm wrong, most people just kind of like wonder about God, and then that's it. They don't actually take the time to find out, but they just wonder, and then they're okay with just wondering. They're okay with kind of just not knowing, not having assurance, and they're just like, or like maybe they find something about church or something like that they don't like, and then they don't follow up. They don't talk to people. They just like, I don't like that, and then that's it. But they don't search. And so the Bible says if you seek, you will find. Like what you were saying, it's like you're not going to find the contact lens on the carpet if you're not looking for it. And I think with so many things in the world, especially like with searchers, people who are given like quote unquote eyes to see from God are just like, they're just searchers. They don't have all the answers. But I think a common thread with a lot of Christians or people that come to faith is that they take the time to look. They just actually look. Yeah. But then a lot of people, I think, give up. And then so I'm just saying that because if you're in a place right now where you're listening to this and you're just like, I don't understand this Christian thing. I've never felt it. I've looked, but I gave it a shot. It just didn't work for me. I think maybe you just got to keep looking. I mean, until your dying day.
Well, think about it like love. I mean, there's a lot of people who are in their 40s or 50s and they never found love. But you could say love doesn't exist, but that doesn't, I mean, is that true? I mean, are the people who are in love, all the people around the world who are in love, are they delusional? Or is it just out there and you haven't found it yet? I think, and love is not, sorry, back to the science stuff, but like love is not measurable. Love doesn't have a weight, doesn't have a way that we can prove it, really. Not even through actions. You can fake that stuff. So we know love exists. So I think that you have to frame it in a very similar way. If you are lonely, you go out and you look for it. You work hard. You make yourself better. You do the things that you're supposed to do to find love. And if you approach faith that way, I think you are far more likely to find. You still might not, but you might not find love either. But I think it's a very noble and rewarding journey to go on. I think that's the journey. It's like, let me try and find love. Let me try and find faith. Let me try and find these things, meaning and purpose, all these things that you can't quantify, but are clearly the most animating things, the things that animate you in one way direction in life more than anything else that is quantifiable, way more than money or riches or fame.
So, that was Will's testimony. Thank you for sharing that. So, for those of you who don't know, where are we going? We are on our way to Las Vegas, Nevada, because I'm cashing in my Christmas present and my birthday present of seeing Carrie Underwood. I'm so excited. Okay. All right, guys. See you next episode. Bye.
Bye.